My dog found my Audio-Technica studio headphones laying out and apparently got a taste for wires because she chewed through the cord. Now I'm not just going to throw these nice pair of headphones that I've had forever just away because of that. So we're going to fix this cord, solder this back together, and probably mostly demonstrate for you how big of a pain in the butt these wires are to work with for a couple of reasons. We'll get to that. The first thing I need to do is strip off some more of the outer insulation to expose the 3 individual wires inside of headphone cable. Yes, they have 3 wires in there. It's not 4, it's not 2, it is 3. And I just use a pair of scissors to do this. You just kind of gently cut around it, and then you can just kind of pull on it. Just make sure you don't cut too through it, or else you will cut the whole wire. You could also use a pair of wire strippers, of course. Now we're already getting into the fun of these stupid headphone cables. On these 3 individual wires, their insulation from each other is a coating on the individual wire strands itself. And you really basically just have to burn off the ends of that coating. I am fortunate enough to have a nice little butane powered torch, and you can see me there. That's what I'm trying to do. But that insulation will catch on fire, and it will continue burning all the way up the wire. So you need to blow it out before it takes off all that insulation, because we're only trying to get a little bit off of the end so we can twist these wires together. So here's perhaps a better shot of this, and I realized I had this torch up way too high, so I turned it down, and now it's not actually melting the wire itself. And something you can't tell is I'm blowing that flame out as it's continuing to burn, because that stuff will just continue to burn all the way down the wire. Before I start putting these wires together and soldering them, I'm slipping on a piece of heat shrink onto one side of this cord so that later on I can bring it back over and do a heat shrink over it. The nice thing, at least, about these wires is they are color coded, so you can twist them back to where they're supposed to go. And I'm just starting one by one here because I'm just going to do one wire at a time so I can put some insulation on it and then do the next one. I use a really high quality solder. That Kester solder right there, that 1 pound roll is about $50, so that's really the best solder you can get. And you're gonna see I'm having difficulty soldering this stuff, whether it's that coating that was on there, which I'm sure it is. No matter what, it doesn't take the solder, and I mean that is the best solder you can get. But basically right there I'm dipping a little bit of solder onto the gun. That is just to get a heat transfer from the soldering gun to the wire, so that's why you do that at first. You just get a little solder in between there so it acts as like a thermal compound to transfer heat from your soldering iron to your wire. And normally at this point the wire, with normal wire, would be heated up and I could just dab it and it would flow on the wire perfectly, but that is not happening with this stuff, probably because of that insulation coating. It is just shedding off the solder. I do find out that it does take some solder, and it's the stuff, it holds it together, but it's not perfect, but it does hold it together in the end. It doesn't seem like there's solder on there because it's not all shiny and silver, but it's on there. I'm a very experienced at soldering, but this stuff is just crappy to solder, so don't feel bad if you're having a hard time with it like I am, because I mean I solder thousands and thousands of connections to all types of audio connectors and wires and everything, and this headphone type of cable is just garbage, but you can see I make it work. I'm really just holding the gun on here and making sure there's heat, and I'm just gently going down and dabbing it. Even though the solder's shedding off of it, I'm just making my best attempt to get it to suck up some solder. That seems to be the best you can do with this stuff. I mean, this type of wire is just, it's awful. I'm kind of testing this stuff, kind of pulling on it a little bit to see if it's even stuck together at all, so I had no idea, and I guess it kind of is. It's there. The ends are touching other insulated pieces where it's wrapped around, so it's not really stuck there. But man, I mean, this sucks either way, coming from a person who solders tons of stuff and makes it nice and pretty. This just junk. A little bit out of the frame, sorry for that, but this first wire that I did, I wrapped it with a piece of tape, the whole length of it, and just kind of fold the tape over the whole thing. That's going to be the insulation, because we have to re-insulate these wires individually. So now the second wire I got all wrapped together after I already insulated the first one, and here I am crapping it up, slopping it up again with this solder. And please, 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 if you're a experienced soldering person, do not judge me right here, man. I can solder really, really well. This stupid wire is garbage. I mean, that's why I made this video, because I always dread ever touching this stuff, man. It's so garbage. Now I'm putting a second piece of tape around the second wire that I did, and I'm not actually putting it around just that wire. I kind of taped it in between the other wire, because since the other one's insulated already, just kind of smushing it around there. And then I'm not actually taping anymore, since the third wire will be insulated from these two, and I'll just put the heat shrink directly over that. And slopping up this last wire here. Wow, this is inspiring me to make a soldering video on how to solder in general, because you know, I'm gonna prove to you that I'm very, very good at soldering. Literally, I've done like 1,000 XLR connectors, and those have 3 connectors on them each, so that's a whole lot of soldering I've done. Plus, you know, any audio connector, 1/4 inch, all that stuff, the real hard ones. Man, this stuff is just crap though. But hey, it actually does kind of hold it together good enough doing it this way, because I compared it from just wrapping it, it pulls apart easy. Then I crappy soldered it like this and tried to pull it apart, and it doesn't pull apart. So hey, it's there. You know, I really don't know what else I could have done. I mean, you saw with the torch, I heated this wire up red hot. At first, even to the point where a piece of the end of the actual wire melted and fell off. I mean, if we're getting this wire cherry red hot and it's not burning off all the contaminants, then I really don't know what else you can do to this stuff to get this solder, to get it to take solder, because clearly it still has some type of plastic coating on it, some type of grease or residue from that coating. That's why it's not taking the solder, and I really have no idea what else you could do. So finally, I'm sliding this piece of heat shrink over this tape, and I did trim off some of the tape with the scissors a little bit, just take a little off. And you can see I didn't actually tape that last wire because it's insulated from the other two, and the heat shrink will kind of get it in there. Heat shrink's good stuff, real good stuff. I love it. Got a heat gun, some heat shrink. You can start making your own cables all day, nice and tidy. Cord's held together pretty strongly now, but since I do use these for recording and the cord gets yanked and kicked and whatever, I'm probably gonna go back over this with some tape just to give it a little bit more strength. All right, check it out. They're working. First deal is optional here, but I see the value in this because I can set it up and go do my thing and film myself. They working. Don't worry about it. Double check, make sure both channels are good, and they are. Both channels are working, and that's cool. So right here's our splice in the cable, and it's pretty strong, but I may go over it and put some more tape on it just to make sure we got, you know, in case this gets yanked, it's not going to come out. So But all good. I mean, that stuff's kind of a pain in the butt to solder, but it came out working just fine.